Janelle is here.
Present.
Kevin Kraus. Beth Lazaro.
I am here.
Gail Moss.
Present.
Tracy Royston.
Here.
All right, thank you. And good evening to everyone. So I'll also recite the rules. Everyone will be treated with dignity and respect. Everyone will have the opportunity to be heard within reason. Anyone wishing to address the board must sign up. Depending on the number of people who wish to speak, we may impose a time limit. I may also limit the number of speakers so that the board can conduct the business of the meeting. These two rules apply more so when we're in person. If there's time at the end, I may permit additional speakers. Profanity and yelling will not be tolerated. Anyone using profanity or anyone who is yelling will be removed from the meeting. If you're unable to do this, I'm kindly asking that you leave at this time. Everyone will be treated with dignity and respect. Thank you for your consideration. With that being said, I believe there's a presentation that is scheduled. We'll have a presentation at this time.
Your Honor, yes, we do. We have Amy Kroll, and she's going to be giving a presentation on the Departments for Work program. So, Amy.
Hi, I'm here to let you guys know, in January, we launched Pathways to Home. This is a new program. We had a 6-month planning grant, but as you know, with COVID, it was quite tricky to, go around and understand what this grant is. So basically, the grant's designed to be a bridge between individuals that are incarcerated to workforce. There's a lot of programs that do bridging for individuals from incarceration to the community. But what we found is if the individual doesn't have a living wage job, the chances of them coming back are super high. So with Partners for Work, which is the Allegheny County Workforce Board, we partnered with them to apply for this grant. And so what does the grant do? Basically, we are enrolling individuals that are in Allegheny County Jail that are between 20 and 180 days from release. From there, we actually sit down as workforce development specialists to talk to them about whatever they've done. And, we in reentry have always supplied the case management and the support services in the community. But what is new for us is that we're now trying to help these guys bridge right into training and or a job. So we have had to take on a lot of training ourselves to understand the multitude of training programs out there, but even more to talk to a lot of employers about our clients and their records and who would they be willing to employ and not. And then our biggest thing is we're not looking at employers if they're not paying above, $15, $18, because in Allegheny County, you have to make about $18 an hour in order to afford your rent, your utilities, your food, your transportation, your clothing. So we know that if we can't get these things provided, the chances of people coming back are very high. So we enroll the individuals. We're doing a full IEP, which is an individual employment assessment on the individual. From there, we are actually talking to them about a lot of training. So we've already enrolled 20 individuals. Just to give you a little snapshot, an individual that we enrolled in here went to alternative housing. From there, he went to Allstate. We actually paid for the training at Allstate. He was getting $10 an hour, which is about $350 a week in a paycheck, because you get paid to train. You get $10 an hour to train. From there, he did receive his CDL license. Actually, he received it last week, and Rock's Trucking hired him. He started on Monday, and he is making $25 an hour. He does have a probationary period that he will be going through for the next 90 days. He does want to go back to school at night, which you can, because he is driving the smaller box trucks. To be able to drive the 18-wheelers, it's a 6 months program. And those guys then, and depending, you know, he's on probation because you got to cross county lines, and some of the jobs you got to cross state lines. So that is his goal for the future. And one of the things when you do an IEP is you look at what's a short-term goal, able to be attained, able to live and be able to afford, you know, and help his family. And then what is more long-term goal for these individuals? But the funding comes through, you know, through the Department of Labor to Partners for Work. And then we in turn are partnering with them to implement this program. We hope to have 100 guys enrolled in the first year. And that's like our goal. In the just January and February, we've already enrolled 10. 3 are now in training programs, with the rest as they get out or go to our work release program. Well, they then will be involved in training programs or immediately to work. Because of our Serve Safe certification in here, it's a beautiful partnership, because once they get their Serve Safe, they're going to go right over to Community Kitchens of Pittsburgh. They'll be making $11 an hour to train over there for the next 12 weeks, 3 months. And they now have internship programs that they'll place you in at a higher wage after you've gotten to a certain part in your training. So we have developed, listen, I never thought I'd be talking to the Builders Guild, and that's a training program where you go in and you touch some plumbing, and you touch some carpentry, and you touch some bricklaying, and you go through all the different trades to see really what you like, you know, because a major portion of the guys that we are dealing with, men and women, are young. They are, I always call them the young knuckleheads, because they don't even know what they're doing. And basically, you have to say to them, do you want to work with your head or your hands? Do you want to work indoors or outdoors before you even start their IEP? Because a lot of them have never even thought about it. So it's a whole retraining, but we're all learning together. So I think it's kind of been a really great program for in addition to reentry, because it's really making everybody look different at the trades and look different at employment. And you know, we always say we got to strike while the iron's hot. There is so many jobs out there, and a lot of employers are becoming more and more forgiving of any criminal record. So it is a time when our clients can really get involved in a really good skill and change their lives forever. So, you know, we're seeing it over and over again. So that's the new program. It'll be running all this year. And I can periodically give the warden updates on how people are doing and the amount of jobs, you know, with higher pay that these clients are getting leaving these jails. So is there any questions? I've stunned all of you.
I think we're all impressed. Great news.
It really is. It's super exciting. It really is. This individual, to know that he got this job, he was just beyond bubbling. And there are incentives too. Every individual can earn up to $250 in incentives, and they help set their own goals. So with this individual, he said, I would like a $50 gift card when I complete training. And I'd like another $50 gift card when I'm at my first job for 30 days. And then I'd like another $50 gift card. And he said it. He let us know he wants them to Walmart. And, you know, he earned that first one when he got his CDL license, you know. So they actually set their own incentives, which gives it's so much more a plan that they're building, and we are not saying this is what you have to do. And this program is very much not a cookie cutter. Everybody is different. Everybody has a different trade. Everybody has got to figure out what I want to do with my life, just like we all did. And you got to stumble around a little bit. So it's very different.
Can I ask the question?
Sure.
Yes. So when they get their CDLs, who supports that? Because I know that's pretty expensive.
We do through the workforce through Partners for Work with this grant. Most of the providers or the training providers are paid $5,000 per participant. And so, and actually we all are going into a meeting because, as everybody knows, they are now changing the CDL license for truck driving. It's coming out. The license has changed and the regs go into effect 2/7. So there's a huge meeting on 2/11 of what is the different training some of our clients will have to go through. This individual knew that these regs were changing, so they changed their curriculum. So he's instead with it. So he's in good.
That's good. That's very nice. I think it's a nice program.
Well, I think we're trying.
Good. I think that's good.
Very important. Any other questions? Anyone?
That's just an absolutely fantastic program. I can see so many people getting the benefit of that. Are there any restrictions on who can participate?
You have to be 18 years of age. You have to be returning to Allegheny County. And again, like everything else, you have to be high and medium risk. We did go back to the Partners for Work and we asked them to talk to the Department of Labor. Can we enroll individuals that are low risk? You know, just to see, can we give it to way past 100? We want to blow that number out of the park, you know. So we're hoping we get a lot more this year.
Fantastic.
Good. Yeah, I think it's great.
Ask a question. When you say, I think I understand what you mean, but when you say high to medium risk, how do you determine if a person's high risk or medium risk?
We go by their pretrial proxy score, and that is age at first arrest, current age, and number of priors. We do go to probation when we think an individual's number is wrong, and we have probation do the LSIR on the individual, and just to see, has that individual had a lot more risk? And if, you know, probation score is different, we go by the probation score.
Impressive. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you for the information. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
All right, we'll now have the Community Corrections Report. Program for offenders.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Adam Zach reporting for Renewal Incorporated. Next Friday, February 11th, our workforce department will be hosting representatives from Land Force Pittsburgh for a job event. They will present an excellent opportunity for our men and women to receive 7 weeks of paid training, followed by guaranteed employment. The training will include first aid, tree planting, OSHA 40, chainsaw safety, and restorative practices. Employment will consist of tree planting and care, invasive plant removal, trail construction, and basic construction, just to name a few. And also next week, February 11th, and also on February 18th, Divine Intervention Ministries, in collaboration with UPMC, will be hosting vaccine clinics at both of our residential facilities. We've been told the Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson vaccines will all be available at the clinics, and this will be open to all our residents and staff who would like to take advantage. Thank you.
Thank you. Renewals tonight, I guess.
That was
That was,
renewal.
that was Mr. Zach at renewal.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
program for offenders.
They changed their name, by the way.
I know. Passages to Recovery is my understanding of the new name, correct? Is anyone here from Passages to Recovery? Okay, how about electronic monitoring?
Good afternoon. Steve Eswine, the probation office. So nothing new to report outside of a report that has been submitted. Just to highlight a few things, we did have 575 individuals on the bracelet at the end of the reporting month. We had 90 people that successfully completed the program during that reporting period, and 5 were returned for program violations. So that's all. Any questions? Thank you.
My apologies, one more time, what was the total number of people on house arrest?
575.
575.
Yeah.
And that would all be as a result of being sentenced, or is that pretrial as well?
That would include pretrial also, yes.
Pretrial. Well, do you have a
Sentenced and
breakdown? Do you have a breakdown? How many pretrial?
Pretrial is roughly around 130.
My memory serves me correctly. There was a time when I think maybe, I don't know, the court system as a whole was frowning upon the use of electronic home monitoring for pretrial detention. Is that still the case, or is it?
No, I don't believe so. It's used pretty heavily. Like I said, it's like around 130 currently that are on. We're putting them on and taking them off every day. So just depending on, who's requiring it.
All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will now move on to the review of the minutes. Hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to review the minutes from the meeting from January 6, 2022. Everyone's had an opportunity to review them? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second? All right. So we will approve the minutes from the previous meeting. Can we now move on to old business? Suicide Prevention Subcommittee.
So peace and clear.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is Chief Beeson. I'm going to field this one for the warden. We're jumping off the agenda a little bit here. The installation of the suicide resistant cells continue, and I can report that 3 of the 10 that are slated for install are completed at this point. So that process will continue until the other 7 are completed and functional. That's all I have, sir.
Any questions or follow-up? No?
How many completions?
3 completed, Ms. Moss.
Okay, thank you.
I know last meeting, there was some concern regarding the time frame for completing a suicide, one of the cells. What is, generally speaking, I know it's hard to kind of say what the time frame is, but do you have a guesstimate as to how long it typically takes to complete a suicide resistant cell?
We're averaging about a week per cell. So we're hopeful, having 7 left, that we should be done within the next 2 months.
So 7 left. Okay, any other questions? Concerns? That being said, I guess we're moving on to the update on the policy for Polycom.
So, Your Honor, good afternoon. First thing I would like to do is introduce everybody to the board. I have our HSA, John Shuley. I have our Deputy HSA, Dr. Brinkman and Ms. Karen Kohler. And I also have our Director for Substance Abuse, Mr. Tom Baumgartner, with me, along with Chief Beeson. So Polycoms. So our Polycoms are operational, but we are not able to use the Renova software as of yet. But if individuals would like to utilize the Polycom machines, they can fill out a request that's on the jail website. Now, I just want to tell everybody, with us having 14 isolated pods, and I'm again saying, we have 14 isolated pods. Our priority is to the court. So those individuals that's on the isolated pod, we're going to make sure that they have access to the courts first. So our Polycom machines are operational. The Renova software is not operational at this time, but if anybody would like to schedule a Polycom visit, they can utilize the request form on our website. That's all I have for the Polycom, sir.
You're muted.
Sorry, trying to keep everyone from hearing my dog barking. Any follow-up or any questions? Okay. So what about the compliance with solitary confinement and the ban ballot referendum, Warden?
So again, I wanted to report that we are completely compliant with Chapter 205. Now, I do want to report to the board that you will see a change to the reporting on the report on the 5th, Saturday. And the change that you will see, you will not see safety as the reason for all of the reasons for people being confined. You will see a different indication, which will be medical, assessment, and or requested protective custody. That's what I'm thinking about right now. That may change by Saturday, but I just want to report to the board, safety will not be the only reason. We are going to look at other reasonings for that report. So that's all I have for compliance to Chapter 205.
Ms. Howell?
Yeah, I'm confused. The referendum very clearly outlines what the reasons are that someone is allowed to be put in solitary confinement. I'm wondering why you are trying to use different terminology instead of the terminology that's required as per the referendum.
So Ms. Howell, tell me what you understand as to what the referendum say should be the reason.
Well, if you give me 1 second here, I can actually read it to you and tell you. Okay, so here's the exception. So you can report this. Facility-wide lockdown. Okay, so that would be every single person in the jail. You could use that as a reason, but you would have to have every single person in the facility on there. Emergency use of short-term solitary confinement, which again can only be for 24 hours. In a requested protective custody, which is when they have to actually fill out a form and request that they be placed in it. So if you're putting someone in solitary confinement, those are the 3 exceptions that are allowed. So those should be the only reasons that are included in your report for why someone is in there.
So I've heard your recommendations, and I will consider those recommendations for Saturday's report.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can I say one more thing? Because it's not really my recommendations. It was a referendum that was passed by the voters of Allegheny County that was reviewed by the county's legal department prior to going on the ballot. So I just don't really understand why it's always coming across to you as like, this is my idea and this is what I would like to see, when it is so very clearly outlined in the language of the referendum. So can you maybe speak to why you don't think that that's what the referendum says?
Ms. Howland, I said that I will look at your recommendations and we will consider it. I'm not going to get any further into that, ma'am.
Right, but I'm sorry, I'm just confused because these are not my recommendations at all. I wish they would because they're brilliant, but they're not my recommendations. This is actually the language of the referendum. So can we just get a report that complies with the referendum and not what your recommendations are for how the reporting should be done?
Again, Ms. Howland, we will look at your suggestions. And if we feel as though that should be the reasoning, we will put it in the report.
Is there maybe someone else on the board that could, rephrase what I'm saying in different words so that it could be better understood? I'm just very confused as to why we have this language. It is very clear. It is outlined. I know you have the copy of the referendum. I know the board members have the copy of the referendum. Is there maybe someone else that could translate here a little bit where this disconnect is?
This is Tracy. I'm sorry. I'll chime in a little bit. I'm having technical difficulties. I'm trying to get back on, but I am on the phone. This was an issue that even though I wasn't physically at the meeting, I was observing last week as well. And I do think that there is some loose interpretation of this referendum that is happening. And I would like to see us as a board maybe have a meeting with the warden to maybe come up with some better definitions, because I feel like when we're reporting solitary confinement or other measures, we are skirting around what the referendum intended, and I don't want to see that happen. I do think it's the responsibility of this board to make sure that that's being complied with as the voters wanted. So, I support what you are saying, Bethany, and I think that maybe some clarification in terms of what we are requiring for reporting would be welcome.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would appreciate it. I actually had suggested a subcommittee specifically for referendum compliance, stuff along those lines. I just, if maybe the warden could read to me like where in this referendum it says the reasonings that he's trying to give, that would maybe clear this up a little bit. Because I don't see anything on here about medical, unless, again, you want to use that as the emergency short term, in which case the person cannot be held for more than 24 hours. That's the only thing that I could see in here that would even maybe almost align with that. But again, it could only be for 24 hours. So I think it's pretty clear. So, I like that idea, Tracy. Is anyone else on the board maybe interested in, forming a subcommittee to ensure that this is followed with? Because I really just think it's disingenuous to the voters who passed this legislation, to the numerous people.
This is Terry. I'm sorry, I'm not on Teams. I'm sorry to interrupt. I think it would be a really nice idea to have a meeting with the warden and maybe take the temperature down a little bit, so it doesn't seem like every meeting we're having this back and forth. And I think it would be just helpful to have a conversation about, like Tracy said, what it means to all of us, and come to a consensus, because I think we could do that.
Yeah, I think so too. And also, if we could maybe get the report before the jail oversight board meeting so that we could reference a report, because what's going to happen is if you're putting this out on Saturday, we're waiting now a whole month to talk about the report from January. We're not trying to do gotchas. It's not like trying to turn the heat up or anything. It's really just trying to enforce a referendum that is now law in this county.
Ms. Hallam,
I apologize.
So I'm sorry, Your Honor.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, Ms. Hallam, per the referendum, we have to send that report out on the 5th of each month, and we need every one of those days from the end of the month up until the 5th to generate that information and review it for its accuracy. So, it's unfortunate that this meeting is on the 3rd of the month, but we need those 5 days. So.
Okay, I understand that. I appreciate you explaining that.
My question is, and forgive me, but I'm trying to take notes. I'm trying to multitask. But what are the three, I don't have the referendum handy, and I know it's in an email and I'm having trouble locating it, but what are the three reasons for solitary confinement?
So the first one, and this is it says exceptions to the rule against solitary confinement. Okay, so the first one is a facility-wide lockdown, where the warden determines a facility-wide lockdown is required to ensure the safety of persons held in the facility. The next one is emergency use of short-term solitary confinement, which is they can be held for a period of 24 hours, but no longer than necessary to determine what they should be isolated from other detainees. They cannot even be held in that 24-hour short-term solitary confinement unless the warden has made and documented an individualized determination of the necessity for it. The person has received a personal and comprehensive medical and mental health examination conducted by licensed professionals, or the medical and mental health professionals have set forth any condition or conditions they believe are necessary to protect the person. And again, so those 3 reasons for the 24-hour only. And then the last one is if the person themselves requests protective custody, in which case they actually have to fill out a form saying that they do this, which I have also asked for a copy of that form, and I haven't been provided with that form as well, if it even exists. So those are the 3 things: 24 hours, facility-wide lockdown, and request it for yourself.
Right, and so even I don't work in the jail, but I can even envision situations that might necessitate solitary confinement that don't necessarily fall into these 3 catch-alls. So I do think it would be worthwhile to have an executive session with the warden at some point in the future to discuss these categories and to try to get an understanding of some of the challenges he may be experiencing, but also the necessity of him having to comply with the referendum. So I think that is a point worth noting, and I think that is something we should definitely do in the future.
Right, and again, if someone wants to, try to do another ballot referendum to change the law, if someone would like to legislate a change to the law, they can do that. But this is a law. This is a law that is on the books in Allegheny County, and we can't say that just because we don't think, that not everything falls into those 3 categories. You still have to follow it, or you have to change the law.
Everyone
It's
is
very
clear.
clear.
Everyone's clear. No one's challenging it. It's the law. But I think that the warden is probably having some challenges regarding situations that he may be encountering in the jail that you and us may be unfamiliar with. So I think it would be worthwhile to have that meeting.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
All right. So with that being said, is there anything else regarding solitary confinement?
So Judge Housey, will you take the initiative to schedule that executive session?
I sure will. Anything else regarding that? And I wanted to point out that Sheriff Krause has joined the meeting, so if anyone else was unaware. With that being said,
thanks, Judge. I had a little technical difficulty getting in here, so.
A few people have, no problem. Good to see you.
I was panicking for the record, but thank you.
IIWF report, Judge Lazare.
All right. So we have been working on a couple of things. The survey is still in the works, and so Terry, I think, has the latest information to update us on the survey of the incarcerated individuals.
Is that now?
Yep.
Sorry, I keep unmuting. Dean Farmer is hoping to have a first draft by late February and a final report in March.
That's fantastic. I guess they got an awful lot of data, and it's taken a little bit longer than anybody thought, because they weren't sure that they would have so much data. It's wonderful to see that everyone participated so well.
Right, and delays due to COVID, I think, among the people who were working on the information.
Yeah, that's not surprising, because I think everybody has COVID or has had it recently.
Seems like it.
The second thing, the big project that we have on our plate is the liaison position that has been approved by this board and that we're trying to get working through. We are looking to enter into a contract with the Pennsylvania Prison Society, where the Pennsylvania Prison Society would provide the personnel that would serve as the liaison. Obviously, that takes a contract between the county and the Pennsylvania Prison Society. We had our job description. They had sort of the terms of what they thought they could do. And Steve Pilarski did an awful lot of work taking every memo that I sent him, which I think was a lot, and putting it together to sort of come up with a list of terms that we thought sort of satisfied both parties. That's been distributed to the members of the committee, and we actually had a Teams conference discussing those. And we think that the next logical step is to proceed with an in-person, it'll be in-person via Teams, meeting with Claire from the Pennsylvania Prison Society. So I've circulated some times and Claire responded, and we think we're going to do that next week, at the end of next week, so that we'll be able to have a sit down and discuss any concerns that the Prison Society has, concerns that we may have as members of the subcommittee, so that we can hammer out the final details. So if all goes well, hopefully we'll have everything ready to go for the next board meeting as sort of a final draft of things, so that we can really move forward with this important position that I think is just going to help out everybody involved. So we're really excited that it's moving, and Mr. Pilarski's done an awful lot of work, and the committee has done an awful lot of work of reviewing things that I send them with sometimes not a lot of notice. So I appreciate that. And I believe that Mr. Halsey has, that Judge Halsey has told Mr. Pilarski that he's now on our committee, which we welcome him to serve on the subcommittee with us.
That is a true.
And I think that's it. I don't think I missed anything.
All right. Does anyone have anything else regarding the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund? No? All right. We'll move on to the update regarding the summit contract. Warden Harper.
I'm sorry, Judge Halsey, did we skip over one of the things on the agenda? The update on compensation for work performed.
Forgive me. My apologies. Thank you very much. Update on compensation for work performed by the inmates at the ACJ.
I don't know. I didn't see that on the agenda, Your Honor, so.
I don't either.
So I'm not prepared to talk about that.
No, it wasn't for you to talk about it. It was from our subcommittee meeting, and I know the acting controller was going to look into it. That's what we are waiting on. I believe at a previous meeting we said that over the next 2 months they were going to study, how much money it would cost, and work with the jail to get numbers on how many hours a week are worked by incarcerated workers, so that we could then try to bring a motion to this board. So it wasn't on the agenda as much as it was something from the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund Committee. So I don't know if Tracy, if anything has happened with that. I know, again, I just want to make sure this doesn't get lost. I know there was a transition in the role of controller. I just wanted to, get an update on anything that's happening, or if there's anything that the rest of the board can do to support that happening.
You're on mute, Tracy.
Thank you. We don't have anything new right now, but I can get something by the next meeting.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
This is Terry. Am I on mute?
No, you're not. We can hear you.
Okay. And speaking about that, I thought Mr. Pilarski was going to look into it if there was going to be any issues with union contracts with paying incarcerated workers.
Oh, you're right, Terry. Thank you. That too.
I can tell you preliminary there would be issues with that in terms of work and stuff like that, but I have not done any extensive research into that. But preliminary, yes, there would be some issues that would have to be addressed for sure.
So since you are our contract guru, is that something you could look into?
Yes, I could do some further research into that.
So Steve, maybe you and I can touch base sometime next week and work together.
Okay.
Yeah, we can certainly put it back on for the IIWF subcommittee so that we can see where we're at that point.
I'm happy to help too in any way possible. I did collect some data on just how many workers there are when I was pursuing this earlier last year. So if I can be any help, just loop me in and I'd be more than happy to share.
Thanks all.
All right. Update regarding the Summit contract, Warden Harper.
So the Summit contract ends August 2022. So therefore, I've decided that we're going to put an RFP out for the commissary services at the jail. We're in the process of revising the RFP based on what we've learned, doing this contract. So right now, we're in the process of reviewing the RFP, and we're going to put it out for bid because the Summit commissary contract does end August 2022. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Yes, Ms. Allen.
So first of all, that is great news. If we can help in any way in getting the word out. Also, if you could share the RFP with us when that goes out, I think that would be great as well. In the meantime, because is that end of August or beginning of August?
August. I'm not exactly sure the date.
Okay. So in the meantime, I had been getting a lot of reports about, maybe we could address this before then, about folks who are either not getting their commissary or getting damaged commissary items is in not getting a refund for them. So I know that the procedure is, like if something's missing, you check it when you go and pick up your commissary. If something's missing, that's reported and you're supposed to get refunded for it. Are you aware of that? Because I've heard it now from multiple people in different pods. And so I'm just wondering if there's anything we can do in the meantime, if you could reach out to Summit and find out why that's happening, or if it isn't indeed a Summit issue and not something internally at the jail, if you could please look into that.
It was brought to my attention, and we're constantly having conversations with Summit commissary about those issues. So I will keep you posted.
Okay, thank you.
Based on the information we received last meeting, hopefully they'll be able to get shoes on the commissary as well going forward. So that was something that was brought up last meeting. The new contract. So any other questions or concerns? Yes.
I was just gonna say, if there's any way, even like maybe the Incarcerated Individual Welfare Fund could work with the county on this to help draft an RFP just based off of complaints that we've received and, experiences with commissary and with Summit as the vendor, if we could maybe work together and kind of draft that as a team.
Well, what I would recommend and what I would ask is, I'm willing to take suggestions from board members, but the suggestion is going to have to be to me within a time period because I have to get this out. So if you have any suggestions, please get them to me within a week so that I can go ahead and get this out.
I appreciate it very much. I'll do that.
All right. Any other questions regarding the Summit contract? All right, Mr. Pilarski, regarding the RFP process, Mr. Kostinowitz in the last meeting had brought up some concerns about the RFP process, and you had indicated that you would do some research and provide him with an update.
I did. He asked specifically about RFP 8611, which went out for training on appropriate techniques responding to de-escalation in various situations at the jail, how to appropriately manage the incarcerated population while complying with the referendum. Talking about what the program would include, it wasn't limited to. It allowed people to place a bid for in whole for everything in there or in any part, any section of that. The RFP went out to the public on 10/7 through November 3rd, 2021. And per purchasing requirements, it was advertised in the both the Post-Gazette and the Tribune Review, as they have to advertise in a newspaper that has a certain circulation. The RFP was posted on Bonfire, which is the county software program, which is utilized to notify vendors. Through that, approximately 900 vendors were identified by their commodity code, and they were notified of that solicitation. Additionally, the purchasing agent who worked this RFP reached out directly to the following groups or individuals via email through a direct email. That was the National Alliance of Mental Illness, Lexipol Public Safety Policy and Training, the American Correctional Association, the National Institute of Corrections, the National Commission of Correctional Healthcare, International Corrections and Prisons Association, the Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, and an individual with the name of Jay Pree, who had heard secondhand about the RFP and reached out to purchasing personally. And even though we sent out that solicitation that about 900 received and those direct emails, we didn't get any proposals for the opening of the bid opening on November 3rd. Since then, we've kind of regrouped and reassessed. And I know through Aaron Dalton and the people at DHS, through their providers, they've been able to provide some of the training that we sought through that RFP. And some of the training got started at the jail, and they will be working with DHS to do additional trainings for first responders, which the jail will be involved in, and some of those other trainings. And I know Mr. Stenowitz specifically mentioned Western Psych, and in talking with Aaron Dalton, she said Western Psych is one of their providers, so it's possible they would be involved in trainings going forward.
Any questions or concerns?
I'm just wondering, did we circle back with Mr. Kenstowitz to let him know that that partnership was formed with DHS to execute that?
I didn't speak to him directly. I know he'd emailed, but I think Judge House reached out to him and said that we had his promise was to do it through this meeting. That's why we did do this meeting. So.
Okay, perfect. Just wondering.
Yeah, just to clarify, Mr. Kucinowicz was informed via email, but also in the last meeting, we indicated that we will provide a response and a follow-up with detailed information in the meeting by way of Mr. Pilarski, and that's exactly what we thought. So, all right. Anything else regarding the RFP process with Mr. Pilarski? With that being said, we'll now move on to public comments. So I'm sure some of these things, I would imagine, will be addressed in the warden's report, but there have been a number of comments, and I'll just summarize. There have been a number of comments regarding the commissary, and all of the board members have received a copy of these public comments. But there have been a number of comments regarding the commissary, in that things were not properly delivered, there have not been refunds, items have been missing or destroyed. So there have been ongoing issues with the commissary. There's also another comment discussing the gift packs and the lack of variety with the gift packs. Being that there are only there are now two meager gift packs available to choose from. Both are hygienic, one for male, the other for female. And the question, the concern was about family members being able to purchase actual gift packs for the incarcerated individuals. I don't know if there's anything you could add to that in addition to what you've said about the summit contract and the RFP, Warden, but those are the comments regarding commissary.
So the only thing I can say about that, Your Honor, is that we'll look into the gift pack situation. So we will add that to our conversation with Summit.
All right, fair enough, fair enough. Also, public comment regarding the use of force in the jail. There obviously was a vote back in September to ban rifle shotguns, flash grenades, and other similar weapons. And there's a concern that those devices are still being carried and or employed in the jail. So that's something you could briefly address, Warden.
So the ACJ is in compliance with the motion passed by the JOB. Our correctional response unit serves as a team that rows the facility to provide support where needed. This includes security issues as well as medical emergencies and other needs. The special delivery systems has been in use for some time, and training and certification was done by an in-house trainer. So that's my response to that question or comment.
All right. Yes, Ms. Allen.
Yeah, so I have a question. I think it was last month's meeting. The warden has said that, and I think kind of reference to now, that since they have been doing this training, that this is not, they already had the shotguns that they're walking around with. And so I'm wondering, so it wasn't in violation of the motion. So I'm just kind of wondering, so if you run out of ammo for those shotguns, do you intend to purchase more?
I intend to purchase more, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and do you believe that that is in a violation of this motion that Judge Housey just referenced?
I do not.
Okay, so I'm gonna, again, read it for you. Further, the Jail Oversight Board prohibits Allegheny County from bringing into the jail any shotguns, rubber bullets, or other similar equipment. So can you please explain to me why you do not believe that purchasing additional ammo, aka bringing it into the jail, would not be in violation of this motion?
The motion says rubber bullets. We don't utilize rubber bullets. We utilize a Acute round. So that's totally different from what the motion is saying. So
Correct.
I still believe that we're in compliance, Ms. Howell.
Okay, so now I think you missed those last couple words because it says shotguns, rubber bullets, or other similar equipment. We were demonstrated those little couches. They are similar equipment. Would you agree?
I would not agree.
Okay, can you please explain why you see them as different?
I'm not going to get into that in this setting. I believe that we are still in compliance to the referendum. And in this setting, I'm just not going to get into that detail. So if you would like to get into that detail at a later meeting, I'm more than willing to talk to you about that, Ms. Howell.
Okay, do you think that maybe an executive session would be an appropriate place for us to discuss this further?
Well, to me, we don't have to have an executive session. You and I can have a meeting, just you and me, and talk about it. So however you want to have the conversation, Ms. Howell.
Can I just interrupt and say, I think that this would go along with the previous conversation that we were talking about and should be part of that executive session too, because it's all encompassing of the referendum. So why don't we just add that as part of the discussion?
Is this something that we should be asking the legal department on or something too, for kind of a, I guess, a
I
response?
certainly think that, yeah, it would be worth it to pull in the legal department.
Yeah, because that's actually my concern. If this isn't the setting and the executive session isn't the setting, and very clearly there is language intentionally placed in here to make sure that there was no attempt at skirting the intention of the motion or other similar equipment, which means anything similar to shotguns or rubber bullets would be prohibited from bringing into the facility. And last month the argument was, well, we already had them in the facility. So I do think it would be appropriate for us to have a discussion how you would bring additional ammo in without violating this referendum for this motion. So if you could tell me the appropriate place to do that so that it's not just a one-on-one, but instead the entire group can discuss it, both the failure of compliance with the referendum and the motion, I think that would be a great tie it all in together. Let's get together and have a meeting.
Mr. Pilarski, you mentioned involving the legal department.
Yes.
I think that's a great idea, actually. I would love to get a legal opinion, but can it please not be the jail's own legal department? Can we make sure that it's someone who doesn't have a clear conflict in opining on the situation?
Mr. Pilarski.
Jail doesn't have a legal department. The county has a law department, but they advise, this is a county ordinance, I guess, county referendum, so they would advise on it.
All right, so then you will be able to contact the legal department regarding this issue, Mr. Pilarski?
Yes, I can speak with Mr. Zeffie, the solicitor.
Okay. Yeah, I just, I don't want to see the jail opening itself up for a potential lawsuit down the road because of failure to comply with both of these things. So I think it might also be good to get that legal decision or legal opinion prior to the meeting that we're all going to have together, if you could do that.
So can I ask a question real quick, Ms. Howland? So what would your recommendation be as to how we would address issues if we are not allowed to have the special delivery systems and or the bullets? Because you're trying to take everything away from us to protect the men and women living in this facility and working in this facility. So I just want to ask you, what do you propose that we do, ma'am?
Well, I sure wouldn't propose shooting anyone with anything. That would be a great start. If we just, any sort of projectiles whatsoever. You can, wrap it up and call it by a different name all you want. But at the end of the day, you're still shooting projectiles at incarcerated individuals who do not have any way of defending themselves, who do not have any. I think that would be a really easy start. And luckily, it is not my job to decide what the solution is. Our job is to vote and draft motions and pass referendums and legislation to make sure that the folks in the jail are protected from serious injuries and deaths. And then your job is to follow those referendums and motions that we pass. So I would just appreciate that happening. It shouldn't have to be a battle. I know you think I love fighting with you on this.
Oh, you
I
do,
really
you do.
No, I would love to not. I would love to just come to these meetings, be able to sit here, take in all the information that you're giving, and not have to argue. I truly would love that. But the reality is I cannot do that. I would not be able to sleep at night knowing that I was complacent in allowing the things to go on in the jail that are happening every day. And so ask is going forward, if we just all operate in good faith and, you know, we get that legal opinion, we have that meeting, I am so happy to help. If you would like to sit down and brainstorm and, you know, not attack and both operate in good faith, I would love to do that with you. All I know is that there was literally one thing that you were told you could not do, and you did that. And so I just want us to work to stop that from happening, to get rid of the shotguns that were banned by the motion, to get rid of any sort of similar equipment to rubber bullets, and to just move forward in having a jail that is less dangerous for the people in there. That's all.
Bethany, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely, Kevin.
And I appreciate your view on this, but what exactly would you expect a jail or law enforcement to do when force has to be applied? What exactly is your scope of what that entails?
I don't know that there is a situation where force needs to be applied ever. This is not.
And I'd ask you to explain that, because I'd ask you to do a ride along with law enforcement all day long. But what I just want to know your scope of the use of force or the lack of use of force, and how that ends up in a situation as an outcome.
Absolutely. So I will start by saying I do think that, you know, the policing on the outside is a different environment than corrections on the inside of the jail, right? Where people are locked in cells, do not have any sort of weapons whatsoever. You already know that going into it, right? You know going into the jail that these folks don't have a gun in their waistband. You know going into it that these folks are already in a vulnerable state. Unless there is some sort of direct harm being done by one person to another person, it is not something that is urgent. Wait it out, talk them down, maybe put in some additional effort to get some sort of de-escalation mental health training inside the jail. Whatever that is, I know Ms. Moss had a really great suggestion for, I forget the name of the program.
Verbal judo. Verbal judo is what we talked about.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we talked about it. We've seen these things in practice in other places, and I do think that it is possible to operate a jail without feeling the need to have shotguns, without feeling the need to have any sort of projectiles, without feeling the need to confront every single situation with escalating techniques instead of de-escalation techniques. I do think that that's a possibility, and I do think that it's something we should explore. But I also know that until we have tried every other avenue that does not involve escalation, that does not involve weapons, that does not involve force. I mean, the numbers of use of force in the Allegheny County Jail are astronomical compared to any comparably sized facility in the nation. Why is that? You can't say it's corrections because it's unique to the Allegheny County Jail. Why is that? That is all I'm trying to understand, is why is it that other folks have been able to figure it out, but we haven't? Let's try some other tactics before we say, oh, you know what? We have no other option. Let's violate this motion. And who cares what the Jail Oversight Board says? Who cares what they vote and tell me to do? Who cares? Because that's what's happening here. And that's why I think it gets so frustrated in these meetings, is because it feels like month after month after month, we're bringing up the same concerns. We're hearing the same issues from people who are incarcerated and staff members in the jail. And all we're getting is deflection from the jail administration. And that's frustrating to me. Let's try other avenues before we say there's no other way to do it, because otherwise you can't.
So I think your point is valid. There's a referendum and the jail has to comply with the referendum. But I also think that it begs the question that when you do have an inmate who has become violent, or an inmate who has not been talked down, I think what I'm hearing from the warden is, to some extent, he has to have options to deal with those situations as well. And so I think it begs the question, when those things have failed, what is he permitted to do? Because he doesn't have pepper spray. He can't use the devices that will fire any projectiles. So to some extent, timeouts aren't working. So if I may finish. So if I may finish. So I think the concern is that I think what I'm hearing from the warden is a level of frustration because he still has to deal with these situations, and he has to deal with an environment that at times can become very violent and very hostile. So I think that's the pushback that he's giving. He does have to comply with the referendum, but he also has to be able to manage the facility. So and that's a statement. That's not a question, but I do believe that it would warrant further discussion regarding some of the challenges he's having, as well as the need for him to comply with the referendum to try to understand some things from his perspective versus just saying there's a rule, follow it, and that's the rest of it's non-negotiable. You can talk people down, you can de-escalate. I've never worked in the jail, but I have worked in Schumann for years. And I can tell you sometimes talking doesn't always work. I recognize that excessive use of the force are not permitted. They shouldn't be tolerated. But we also need to hear, I believe, more from him regarding his position on some of the strategies that he's tried. And I think that's what he's saying to you, Ms. Allen.
And I understand that. And all I'm asking is that before you say, what else can we do? Our hands are tied. Can we look at the fact that there are plenty of other correctional facilities across this country that don't use these weapons and have lower violence rates than we have in the jail? Entire states, Massachusetts and California, who have, basically eliminated solitary confinement and the weapons that we're discussing right now. And their cases of use of force are lower. Their rates of violence in their jail are lower. Remember that a majority of people in this jail suffer from a mental health diagnosis, right? Suffer from some sort of thing that makes them particularly vulnerable in this state. Now, add on top of that, the fact that they are locked in a facility, haven't been able to have their family or loved ones come visit them in 2 years, have been dealing with a global pandemic that I, for one, know that I can speak to the fact that I'm struggling with it and I'm not in jail. And I'm sure most people are as well, too. So compound all of these things and tell me why there aren't more things that we can try first. Let's bring one of these facilities that has eliminated the use of solitary confinement and the weapons to our meeting. Let's have meetings with them, whether it's executive session or in the public meeting. Before you try to say that this does not work, try the other options first. And until you've tried it, you can't say that it doesn't work because you don't yet know.
But can I say something? One of the things I want to do is correct Ms. Holland, because we are the only county jail that has had leg irons taken from us. No jail in the world has had leg irons taken, chemical agents taken, and the restraint chair taken. So I just want to clear that up first. And if you find another jail that's done that, let me know, because I've been doing research. Now, the second thing, let me finish. Now, the second thing is this. You've heard from your own experts saying that taking of the chemical agents, restraint chairs, and the leg irons is unprecedented. You heard it from your own expert, and some members of the board have reached out to other county jails, and they were totally shocked about that. So, I just don't want us to put my employees and my incarcerated individuals in more harm by taking more tools from us. And that's what it looks like you're trying to do.
Okay, and I understand what you're saying. First of all, the expert that spoke to us was not in any way my expert. It was simply a corrections expert. And second of all, when did OC spray come into the jail? Do you know when it was? Because I do. About 20 years ago was the first time that the OC spray was introduced at the ACJ. So what did they do before that? And then you talk about the restraint chair. You openly admitted that you're using a stretcher, a gurney, in place of a restraint chair. So don't act like all of your hands have been tied and all these tools have been removed when time after time after time you're finding workarounds and you're using them that were not explicitly outlined. but jails have operated before these practices were ever in place, and unfortunate for everyone involved, jails will probably continue to operate after these things are removed from these facilities. So instead of treating this as if all of these people deserve to be treated as lesser than humans, deserve to be targeted with weapons, deserve to be strapped to restraint chairs, remember that these are human beings. These are not animals. These are people with families. These are people who the overwhelming majority of them have never even been convicted of a crime. And yet we're spending the majority of the meeting fighting about why you're not allowed to shoot them with shotguns, with rubber projectiles. Like that, it just blows my mind. These are our neighbors.
So I just want to say this. We do not treat our individuals incarcerated in our facility other than as human beings. So I want to say that first and foremost. Now, chemical agent, before chemical agent was used in the penological theory, we used to use a 5-man cell extraction team and go up in there and restrain those guys. But we found out that that's not the way to do things. And if you just spray a little bit of chemical agent, you normally get more compliance. So my thing is this, the way you're trying to take us in, more officers, employees, and inmates are going to be hurt, Ms. Howell. And I'm done.
All right. So let me say, go ahead, Mr. Royston.
I was just going to say, I think that we need to reserve this conversation because we could use the entire meeting to do it. And I think rather than have this back and forth in order to separate some emotion from the conversation, that we need to have a very structured meeting with an agenda specifically to address each of these issues.
I agree. And that was exactly what I was going to say. Let's move on.
And I would appreciate that too, because there's a lot I'd like to say, but I just don't feel that the setting's right on certain issues that I would like to address.
Okay. So that was my next, well said, Ms. Royston. I was about to say, let's move on to the next public comment. There was another public comment regarding the jail struggling to recruit new officers. There's the concern regarding the application fee and how it is impacting the jail's ability to recruit qualified candidates for employment in the jail. Is there anything you can offer regarding the application fee, Warden?
I can, Your Honor. Fee can apply for.
Warden, you're muted, it looks like.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
You good?
Yeah.
All right. The fee was implemented by Human Resources to ensure some investment in the process for applicants. Applicants who are unable to pay the fee can apply for a hardship waiver to have the fee waived. This process is included in our job description for correctional officers on our website and is also shared with potential applicants. So they have a way to waive the fee.
Okay.
If I could just follow up a little bit on that, Your Honor, I mean, in the past, the county would get hundreds of applicants and it would have maybe 60 or 70 people show up for the test. So it was a lot of time and effort spent and money spent processing applicants who had no intention of showing up to take the test. They instituted a small fee to try to get serious applicants. It resulted in less applicants, about the same amount of people showing up for the test. The process we now, like the warden said, it has a small fee attached. I believe it's like $40. You can ask for a waiver. To my knowledge, to date, 9 people asked for a waiver and all 9 people qualified for that waiver. But we're not seeing, in the days of the Great Resignation, if some people are calling it, this is not a problem. It's, just at the Allegheny County Jail. It's also a problem across the county and across the country. So if anybody knows anybody wants to apply for a job, direct them to our website, have them apply. We're more than happy to take them.
Thank you. The warden indicated that Mr. Shuley and Dr. Brinkman and Mr. Baumgartner were present, but I'll put this public comment out there, and it might be something they can address at some point during the meeting. There's a concern regarding the medicines being disseminated and distributed in the jail. There's a concern about the amount of psychotropic drugs that are being given, and there's a concern about the impact that is having on the inmates, and just in terms of how it tends to affect behavior and the long-term consequences associated with distributing those medications in the jail. So that's pretty much paraphrasing, but that is generally speaking what the concern is. And I don't know if that's something that those gentlemen can I believe, well, those individuals could speak to now or at some point during your report.
Well, Mr. Jan, I'm going to speak to this because, you know, incarcerated individuals have the right to refuse medications. And a lot of individuals do refuse that medication. So the requested data that they're asking for, I mean, it's just not available. So that's our response to that. A lot of people do refuse the medication, and they have a right to do that.
Okay. So I do have a question regarding medication. What if a person comes into the jail and they are currently taking a number of drugs for health issues that existed prior to arriving at the jail? What is the process for ensuring that that medication is being prescribed and or continued while they're in the jail?
So at our intake process, we do a medication verification to be able to bridge anything that is currently being prescribed. If any of the medications are found to not be current, they would have to then be seen by a provider internally to assess any kind of prescribing that they would add to the patient. Okay. So, and this is something I've dealt with when I was in private practice. Is there a delay in that process? So if a person comes in and there's a medication they're receiving on a daily basis, they've been arrested, incarcerated in the jail, what is the time frame for that to happen? Because, you know, there may be a concern about their levels being maintained or them needing to take that medication on a daily basis. What is the lag time between that evaluation and that medication being prescribed in the facility? Well, if they're currently taking it, when we run that medication verification, then we have evidence of it and they're able to have that ordered almost immediately. Okay. So then with the medication verification, you're able to see the medications that have been prescribed for that individual, and then you're able to monitor that and then continue with that medication. Correct. Understood. I wasn't aware of that.
I have a question on the medication myself. What, say, and you kind of touched on it, Judge Halsey, say a person, and this is after the verification and they're already incarcerated, and you have daily medicine that you have to take at a certain time. How is the medicine disseminated? Because I have had questions asked me on person who said they didn't get their medicine that day, or it was long time. Is there a certain time the medicine's given out, or how what is that process?
So, Ms. Moss, what happens is we have LPNs that distribute the medications on the level, and the LPNs have approximately 300 to 400 individuals to provide medications to. So we try everything in our power to try to get the medications to the individuals in a timely fashion. But sometimes there are some issues, but we really try to get it to them in a timely fashion.
Okay, because I can remember that one of the things with problems we had with Horizon when they were there was about getting medications to the residents. So, and I've been asked this question a couple of different times about medication. So.
Ms. Howland?
Yeah, so does that same policy for distributing the medications, does that apply to folks on medication for opioid use disorder as well?
Yeah, I can talk about that.
In what respect are you asking? Yes, they do receive it, but yet what are you asking?
Like, is it distributed by the same sort of position? Like, is it the LPNs that are distributing that? Is it on the same time frame? Does that time frame sometimes change every day? As someone who used to be on MOUD, I know that if you don't take that at a specific time every day, and I know this is true for some psychiatric meds as well, that could mess up the imbalance. I mean, you could even experience a little bit of withdrawal if you're not on the same schedule. So I'm just wondering if there are different procedures for distributing MOUD than there are for distributing the rest of the meds.
Our medications for opioid use disorder are distributed on a separate time frame because of the procedures that are required for that administration. So it's not administered at the same time as the rest of our medications.
Very good. Very good.
And is there ever a pod or pods or entire levels of the jail that maybe get skipped over for one of the med passes, that maybe staffing shortages. I know we used to get, I didn't see it this month, but we used to get healthcare staffing vacancy reports on how many healthcare staffing vacancies there were in the jail. And I know that there's a lot. And so I'm wondering if there's ever a time where meds are, a dosage is missed, or, on a holiday per se. I know I got some reports from folks not getting their medication on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So I'm just wondering if you could speak to if that ever happens and what you do to prevent that from happening again.
So I'm just going to say this, Ms. Holland, as I stated before. During COVID, quarantines and everything, there has been some occasions where individuals have received their medications late. But we do, as much as we possibly can, and that's all the time, make sure that everybody get their medication, but it may not be in a timely fashion because of the situation that we're in with the pandemic.
Right, but is there ever a time where an entire med pass is skipped? Not just pushed back in an hour or two late, but skipped?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Another comment we received was there was a concern about the food that is being given to the inmates and what is done when people have food allergies. I don't know if that's something you can address, Warden.
I got it right here. Hold on. Hold on. Anybody see it? What page?
Next to last. Okay.
Okay. If an individual has a food allergy, all the individual would have to do is send a request to our provider to inform the provider that they have an allergy. The provider will call them up and evaluate them, and a determination will be made by the provider to take care of their allergies.
Okay. So it's basically it's upon the responsibility lies obviously with the incarcerated individual to inform the staff of any allergies that exist.
Yeah, absolutely, Jan. There's no way we would be able to know about it. So all they have to do is let us know. We'll give them the medical attention that they need to give them the allergy to take care of their diet.
Okay.
And excuse me, but does that also work for intolerances? There's a difference between a milk allergy and a milk intolerance. And so, people that have an allergy are going to have, anaphylactic shock. People that have an intolerance are going to have digestive symptoms. So, I mean, can they tell you that they're lactose intolerant and it's the same, handled the same way as an allergy is?
Jan, I would think that would be the case. You know what I'm saying? They just have to inform us and the provider will make that decision.
All right. Question statement regarding the treatment of trans people in the facility. There's a concern that they might be isolated or being treated differently. And I don't know if that's something you could address briefly, Warden.
Your Honor, we don't treat anybody differently. If a person has COVID, regardless of who they are, they're going to be isolated.
So in terms of trans people, is there anything more you can say about in terms of your approach? Is that something you can briefly discuss for dealing with the trans incarcerated individual?
I'm going to say that whether they're transgender individuals or not, all individuals are treated the same when it comes to this virus. If a trans individual or anybody else is positive for the virus, they will be isolated. So they're treated just like everybody else.
All right. Another comment was regarding people in the jail with mental health issues. Do they still have the ability to maintain contact with their family members?
Absolutely. The only way they would not be able to maintain contact with their family is if the provider deemed that it is a security risk for them to be out, have the tablets, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. So they would still be able to maintain, I'm assuming, telephone contact?
They will be able to maintain all contacts with their family unless deemed inappropriate by a provider.
Okay. Another comment dealt with ensuring that the incarcerated individuals have access to language, given that there may be people in the facility that do not speak English. What are taken, or if any, to address those issues regarding interpreters and or even sign language?
We have the language line and we have the use of the TTY telephones in which these individuals can use so that they can communicate. So those are the two methods that we have.
And the last comment dealt with people being placed in solitary confinement, not being permitted to leave their cells. And it's my understanding that will be addressed in your report, which is due on the 5th. And Ms. Hallam has already pointed out some concerns regarding the statuses that you've used in the past. We will schedule an executive session to address those concerns. But as far as the numbers and the issues related to solitary confinement, is it a fair statement to say that that information will be contained in your report, which is due on the 5th?
It will.
All right. Okay. Anything else from anyone? That being said, President's report. Because I don't have a President's report. All right. Well, we'll move on to the Ward's report. Warden.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm proud to announce that the OMSE upgrade has been completed, and as of January the 24th, all individuals leaving the ACJ will receive their tablet monies and all monies that's due to them. So we're proud that that has finally been in place. Information as to how you can add money to an individual's account is on our website. It's no longer 2 accounts. It's just one inmate trust account, and the incarcerated individual can put it on this tablet account to, make calls. Resuming visitation at the ACJ. As you know, earlier this month, we had over 250 incarcerated individuals that tested positive for COVID. As of 1/31/22, as of today, there are only 34 incarcerated individuals that are tested positive for COVID, and we have 14 pods that are isolated. And I'm gonna say this again. We have 14 pods that are isolated. We are gradually seeing a reduction of COVID cases in our jail, and with the mitigation efforts that we put in place has caused the COVID cases to go down. But COVID cases in our community is still high, and it's so high the PA Department of Corrections has ceased in-person visiting along with other correctional county jails. So one of the things I just wanted to say to everybody is this: we want to get back to some type of normalcy. So when I see the community cases go down, when I see that our cases go down in our jail, and most importantly, when our 14 isolated pods have been reduced, we already have a plan of action as to how we're going to implement in-person visiting. But we've got to make sure that we're safe when we're doing it. So mental health first aid. So we began mental health first aid training in November, and as of today, 290 employees have received mental health first aid training. Your Honor, that's all I have for the Warden's report.
Anyone have any? Yes, Ms. Hallam.
So I want to start and then work backwards. So about the COVID in the jail, right? So according to the dashboard in January, there were 256 incarcerated individuals who were infected with COVID throughout the month of January. Is that correct?
250 some, yes, ma'am.
Right. So that's over 1/6 of the entire Allegheny County jail population, right? So I know the CDC had put out guidance saying that telling correctional institutions not to overcrowd housing pods because it can and will lead to more large-scale COVID outbreaks. And I know that in previous meetings, you had told us how you were, I always forget the word you use, like condensing, consolidating pods, collapsing pods maybe was the word, and putting more people on each pod in order to shut down other pods. So we have empty pods and then what seems like crowded pods. So I guess what I'm asking is, are you not concerned, or are you at all concerned that doing that is actually what has caused January's number of folks infected with COVID to be so high?
First of all, I want to correct you with your interpretation of what the CDC guidelines are. And the CDC guidelines did not say anything about the overcrowding of any pod. Secondly, I want to say that none of our pods are overcrowded, as I've stated too many months and every month. We've come up with the process as to how we can manage the inmate population to reduce the cases in our facility. What we found out, though, was when we gave the incarcerated individuals more out of cell time, they were not compliant with wearing their mask properly. They were not compliant with socially distancing. They were not compliant. So that's why our cases went up. So until we can come up with the process to get these cases down, we're going to keep it the way it is. It's worked. We've shown that it's worked. Our pods are not overcrowded. And there's other issues that I'm not going to talk about in this setting as to why I made that decision, Ms. Howard.
Okay, my concern is just, I know that the county had put out a press release not that long ago saying that the reason for like lockdowns and stuff at the jail was because of staffing shortages. So I'm just wondering if these staffing shortages have anything to do with why the pods are being collapsed, and then also why there's more people on each pod and therefore, 256 COVID cases in a month.
Well, Ms. Hallam, again, I'm not going to talk about staffing shortages in this meeting.
Okay, so is that something that we could schedule an executive session for too, since that seems to be the only place I'm allowed to get these answers?
I'm willing to talk to you guys any other setting besides a public setting, Ms. Howell.
Okay, I'm just wondering why you put out a press release talking about staffing shortages, but then aren't comfortable talking about it in this meeting. It just seems like kind of counterintuitive.
Well, I think he's indicated that he doesn't wish to discuss that any further, but he's willing to have an offline conversation.
Okay, that sounds great. So we got 2 executive sessions in the pipeline. I'm very much looking forward to them.
One for sure, and a possible. What
It
else?
sounds like 2.
Sounds like one and a possible. What else
right.
would you like to talk about, Ms. Hallam, regarding his report?
Really, that I think is my biggest concern was just the staffing shortages in the COVID numbers. So that's all I have for this.
Thank you. All right, Warden, is that the end of your report?
Your Honor, yes, it is, sir.
All right, can we hear from Chief Deputy Warden Beeson?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to be reporting on our recruiting efforts and recent promotions before I pass it off to the healthcare team. They're going to give the COVID update. So we have a current cadet class of 4 individuals. They're set to graduate tomorrow, Friday the 4th. Our next class is scheduled to begin on Monday, February 14th, and that's consisting of 8 corrections officer candidates. Additionally, we have a physical agility exam scheduled for February 23rd to the 26th for all interested parties that have applied. Recently, we've promoted to the rank of sergeant, captain, and major, so I'd like to go through and detail those. We promoted 11 individuals to sergeant recently. Sergeants Crum, Mosley, Carr Jr., Yizzy, Brickley, Andrasic, Besselman, Most, Barker, Rivera, and Pellis. We've recently promoted 2 to the rank of captain, Captain Sullivan and Captain O'Lean, and also 2 to the rank of major, Major Young and Major Badekiefer. The jail administration would like to pass on their congratulations to all these individuals. If there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer to them before I pass it off to the healthcare team.
Yes.
I just have a quick question. I had heard that, since we're speaking of promotions and stuff, that there was captains that were filling in for aid-on positions when there was no one staffing them. Can you speak to that? And if that happened, how many times that happened?
We're not going to talk about that, Ms. Hallam, in this setting. So that's something that we need to talk about in an executive session. That is not for the public, ma'am.
Yeah, but, we can talk about that in executive session. I'm just concerned that I almost understand your argument why you want to talk about staffing shortages in general in executive session, but there is no, perceived security threat for talking about why a non-medical professional is filling in for a medical position in the jail. Can you speak about it here, please?
No, I cannot, ma'am. I've already said that.
Okay, so staffing in general is just completely off limits.
It's off limits in a public setting. Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha.
All right. Anything else, Deputy Warden?
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Chief Deputy Warden, my apologies, and congratulations to those persons who were all promoted. I think that's noteworthy. Anything else, Ms. Hallam? Anything else from anyone regarding Chief Deputy Warden's report?
I think there's a medical update.
Oh,
We were going to move on to the COVID update, sir.
my apologies. Yes, sir.
Well,
Thank you.
can we also congratulate the new Chief Deputy Warden, since he didn't include himself with any of that, and say congratulations very much to Chief Deputy Warden Beeson. Well deserved.
Well deserved. Correct. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lazare. Thank you. Yes, medication assisted. I guess we will go with update on modification of healthcare record to include length of individual counseling sessions.
We had the COVID update first, if that's okay, Your Honor.
That's fine. I'm sorry. Yes, that's fine.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening, everybody. So the numbers on the Allegheny County Jail website have been updated to reflect 3,768 incarcerated individuals having received a PCR viral diagnostic test for COVID-19. Of those, 468 have been found to be positive throughout the duration of the pandemic. There are 34 incarcerated individuals presently positive in the facility. We currently have 14 ISO pods with 10 pods on normal operations. Today's institutional count was 1,560. We have had 3,189 negative PCR tests and 14 pending tests. We have 0 incarcerated individuals hospitalized from COVID-19 at this present time. From January 1 through January 30, 2022, 5,179 rapid antigen tests were offered with 4,672 negative, 474 positive, and 33 refusals. In total, since April 12th of 2021, we have offered 27,305 rapid antigen tests with 25,668 negatives, 914 positive, and 705 refusals. We have had a total of 952 positive cases since the first diagnosed case of incarcerated individual on April 6th of 2020. And as far as employees throughout the pandemic, we have had 250 staff report positive results. We presently have 15 individuals who continue through their recovery process and have not yet returned to work. Vaccination update. Our facility applied to be a vaccine provider in December of 2020 and struggled to obtain our own supply of vaccines despite continuous application. We were fortunate to have the commitment in our partner organization, Allegheny Health Network, to support on-site vaccination clinics. On April 12, 2021, our facility was able to host our first vaccination clinic for the incarcerated population. We've held additional on-site clinics without the additional support or supply from AHN to continue our efforts to support our population and the community to increase herd immunity. We are extremely grateful that more incarcerated individuals have elected to receive the COVID-19 vaccine, especially with the presence of other variants and rising cases counts in the community. Additionally, we have the capacity to provide booster vaccines in compliance with recommendations from the CDC. We've begun the process of booster vaccinations for staff and incarcerated individuals. In total, thus far, the Allegheny County Jail has supported the vaccination of over 2,328 incarcerated individuals and have provided over 384 booster vaccine doses. We have stored Pfizer, Moderna, and the Janssen vaccine. We continually offer these vaccines and complete vaccinations, typically Monday through Friday. We have seen a decreasing interest in vaccinations amongst our incarcerated population and have had only 90 persons interested in receiving the vaccine in the month of January. Last month, we reported that we had 706 individuals who received the full series. This month, we have 724 incarcerated individuals who have received the full series. Despite continuous vaccination clinics, we have struggled to increase our percentage of incarcerated individuals who are vaccinated because of the transient nature of our population.
That it?
That's it. Yes.
All right, so I guess we'll update on modification to the healthcare record.
Judge Housey, can I ask a COVID question?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
This is Terry Klein. So if what happens if an incarcerated individual refuses to be tested?
If they refuse to be tested, they are considered to be positive and maintain their isolation.
I think that's the right thing to do.
Yes.
Great question. Any additional questions? My apologies, Ms. Klein. Sorry about that. We'll move on to the update.
Adequate number of tests now in the jail. I had heard something about them being delayed or something like that.
Well, I just want to say this. I think everybody's having issues getting supplies of the rapid antigen test. So it's not just us. Everybody's having an issue with getting the test.
Can I forward on to you somebody who had reached out to me who I don't know if it's who has a number of tests?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Any additional questions? All right, we move on to the next agenda item.
So related to the modification of the healthcare record in terms of individual counseling sessions, we've not been able to, as the COVID updates have taken precedence of over changing those areas of the health record, though we have been able to still kind of track some of our counseling sessions. So we've had 22 counseling sessions, and with some of the isolation procedures, we have had some adjusted interactions, which have allowed for 49 additional clinical contacts from our therapist.
Any questions for Dr. Brink? Thank you. Medication assisted treatment update.
Hello, everyone. Director Baumgardner. I think a lot of you are aware of some of the history. It's my first time reporting on it, so I'm just going to go over a few things real quickly with you. The jail has expanded its medication-assisted treatment options for opioid use disorder by adding Subcommittee. Subcommittee is a once-per-month injection that is essentially impossible to divert. The jail has also expanded its contract with its methadone provider and is actively developing the implementation of the methadone service for additional individuals. But currently, methadone is only available for pregnant individuals. For the medication-assisted treatment presently in the facility, we have 64 individuals who are prescribed buprenorphine, also referred to as Suboxone. Of that, we have 9 individuals receiving Subcommittee, which is the long-acting injectable form of Suboxone, and we are scheduled to administer 3 injections within the next few days. During the month of January, from January 1st to the 31st, 114 unique individuals were prescribed buprenorphine and continued with their medication, which again is an increase from December. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, can I have a clarification? When you said you started buprenorphine on incarcerated people, was that a new prescription for them, or had they been receiving that in the community?
So we started Subcommittee, but that would have been a continuation of the buprenorphine. We don't do inductions for that medication.
Okay.
We do
That's what I
continuation.
And
Thank you.
would it be possible to add the Vivitrol numbers to your report on medication-assisted treatment? Because I understand that the Vivitrol program is still continuing in the jail as well, and sort of find that to be highly successful in our mental health court. So it'd be nice to add that.
Absolutely, Judge.
Thank you.
Ms. Hallam?
Yeah, so what, if a person, can a person be expelled from the program for receiving a misconduct from the MAT program?
From the MAT program, misconducts don't expel people from MAT. So we have treatment programs that maybe have different, the 5E program, which is the substance abuse program, which the conducts would have a bigger effect on. The medication isn't discontinued for a misconduct specifically.
Okay, and are you eligible to receive MAT if you are in the SHU?
Yes.
Okay, so even people like, for example, on 8E are still eligible to receive MOUD.
Right. When people are, if they are on a pod and move to restrictive housing, then the MOUD medication goes with them.
Okay, fantastic. And is there, can you speak to any situation on which someone would be removed from a MOUD program?
If our biggest issue with that would probably be in the lines of the diverting of the medication without any effort towards stop diverting. So we have to protect the individuals on the pod and make sure that that medication isn't being misused.
Okay, and that's the only reason, if you were like cheeking it or, you know, something like that.
Well, also if there's any sort of, violence related to the medication pass, all of these situations are reviewed on a treatment team type basis to make sure that we're getting multiple input to make sure, and we try to make the best possible decision given the situation.
Okay, thank you so much for that info.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other additional questions? All right. Regarding the commitments to Torrance.
Yes, we have 19 awaiting admission that have been committed. 13 of those are beyond the 30 days. And currently we don't have any scheduled admissions at this time.
Any questions?
No, I just have one thing I was just thinking of. Did we talk about methadone? I know we talked about Subcommittee. Like, did we talk about like expanding it? Because I thought I heard conflicting information. It used to be just pregnant people, and then it was expanded. And I think I read something the other day that said like 70 people are on it. I'm just wondering if that is planned to, like, are we going to expand that even further and offer methadone to more people?
Yeah, I did comment on that. We're in the process of expanding that program as well.
Right. I'm just asking like when and to whom.
It would be anyone who comes in, it's same basis as Suboxone, if it would be a continuation medication, and that would have to be verified through an intensive process. And we're still looking at finalizing things with a vendor to begin that process.
Okay, so like no timeline right now, just in the works.
We're hoping the sooner the better. We are working towards it. It's a difficult process. I believe Chief Williams commented on that last month with, the providers trying to get people hired, and it's the same process across the board.
Yeah, that's where I thought she said last month that it was expanded to like 70 some people.
I think that may have been the buprenorphine number.
All right.
Oh, okay, that's what it was. All right, thank you very much.
I have a question. How many men and women are in the acute mental health section? Or did you give that number? I might have missed it. How many women do we have? I know when I was there, I visited that area, those two areas. How many? And you say you have 19 waiting to go to Torrance, but how many people do we have in the acute mental health?
Just because they're waiting to go to Torrance does not mean they're currently on an acute mental health pod. However, related to the females that are on the acute mental health pod, we currently have 13. And then for men on the acute mental health pod, we have 22.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? And question is a concern that everyone is expressing. Plan to resume visitations in the jail.
Yeah, John, I just spoke about that earlier. So as I stated before, we're down to 34 positive cases within our jail. We have 14 pods that are isolated. The community, we still have a huge caseload of positive individuals in our community. We want to bring these individuals out, but we're just going to look and see when the cases are reduced in the community and when our isolation pods are reduced before we actually start trying to bring people into the system.
Understood. Any additional questions regarding that information? Fair enough. So with the new business, Ms. Klein had indicated that she'd like to make additional comments or remarks regarding her visit to the jail. Ms. Klein?
Thank you, Judge. Yes, thank you, Judge Housey. I apologized last month that I didn't give a shout out to the people who shepherded me around the jail. Everyone was incredibly helpful and took me wherever I want and let me speak to the incarcerated individuals in private. And I apologize for that oversight, and I am very appreciative of how kindly I was received at the jail. Thank you.
Thank you. So additionally, in the past, we would have two motions, one to put by Ms. Hallam, one to put $50 on each inmate's account, incarcerated individual's account on their commissary, and then another motion to put $50 on their tablet. Because it's my understanding that because of upgrades that have been done to the system, $100 can now be placed on the individual commissary account, and they have the ability to move that money around at their discretion. So that motion now will just be reduced to one motion for $100 per incarcerated individual so that they can use the money as they see fit. So Ms. Hallam, would you like to take it away?
You took all the words right out of my mouth. Thank you, Judge Housey. That was the perfect explanation. So that's exactly why there's one for 100 instead of two for 50 now. So with that, I would like to make a motion for money that was previously put on each incarcerated individual's commissary account and tablet account. Oh, you just read that. I would like to make a motion for $100 to be put on each person's commissary and tablet joint account. There was a total of 1,539 people when I drafted this motion for a total of $153,900. So I would like to move to approve.
Second.
We all seconded it, I think.
Yeah.
Anyone opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
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 And then Judge Housey, if no one has anything else, I'd just like to say one more thing before the meeting adjourns.
Sure.
Okay, so we've been sitting here for about 2 hours now, and one thing that not a single person brought up was that a man died after leaving the jail very recently. As a result, was found unconscious and unresponsive in his cell. His name's Paul Spiezak. And I first of all want to bring up, like, how in the world do we sit through a 2-hour meeting, or warden reports, deputy warden reports, and not hear this man's name, not hear anything about the situation? I first want to bring up that. And then also, like, just kind of want to talk about the process in general. I know in the past when people have died at the Allegheny County Jail, or something happens to them at the jail and they die at a hospital shortly after, as happened in Mr. Spiezak's case, that Warden Harper had said that there was an internal review that happens for each and every death. And so I just want to, get an update on, is that internal review happening, or is this death excluded because he died in the hospital later? I also want to know, if the jail is tracking the deaths of people who leave.
If I may, it looks like you're going to have a number of questions, so why don't we allow the board?
Can we please get an update on Mr. Spiezak and what happened to him?
Question, you can move on to the second, but whichever you prefer.
Sure, that's what I would like to know first, is if we could please talk about the person who lost their life as a result of something that happened in the jail.
Paul Spiezak was a 77-year-old male committed to the Allegheny County Jail on January 4th, 2022 for an evasion of privacy charge and a probation violation. He was found unresponsive in a cell on January 22nd, but alert and stable after response by a healthcare department, and he was transported to a local hospital. The hospital advised that he had numerous medical complications and recommended that the next of kin be notified and engaged in treatment and care conversations with the hospital. The court released the individual from custody of the jail on January 28, 2022, due to his condition. Once released, we received no further updates or information from the hospital. As he is no longer in the custody of the ACJ, we did not receive any notification of his death. After receiving a media report, we confirmed with the medical examiner's office that Mr. Spiezak died on January 30th, 2022 at 15:55 hours. We have no further information at this time. As with all incidents at the jail, it will be reviewed by our Internal Affairs County Police Jail Administration. The medical examiner's office has taken jurisdiction of this case and will determine cause and matter and the release of the same according to its protocol. It's under investigation, and that's all I can say about that case.
Okay, so my first question is, who found him unresponsive? Was it, like he was just laying on his cell? Did somebody see him fall? Can you just talk about what happened leading up to him being found unresponsive?
I don't think that I want to do that in this setting. I stated that he was found unresponsive. If you want more details, Ms. Howland, I'll be more than willing to do it in a non-public setting.
Okay, and then I think you answered my next question already, but just to clarify, so when someone is transported to the hospital from the jail, are they always released from the custody of the jail?
They're not always released, no ma'am.
Who makes that decision whether or not to release them from the custody of the jail?
Yeah.
The court
can't make that decision.
Okay, I was just asking, okay, so the courts make the decision. So how are the courts informed when someone is transported from the jail to the hospital?
If I may, it's not so much that the courts are informed when someone's transported. There's just a motion filed. Someone files a motion and a judge will rule on the motion. So.
Okay, is this the 6A motion?
6A, go ahead, Judge O'Leary.
I mean, the 6A is the order releasing them, and the courts find out from various different ways that somebody has been sent to the jail. Sometimes it's the attorney for the person who says, can they be released? Sometimes it's the sheriff's office, because as long as they're in custody of the jail, the sheriffs have an obligation to monitor them and provide security. And so, it varies in different ways how the courts are notified. And it's not the overall courts, it's the judge who is assigned to the case. And then the judge can make the decision as to whether or not that person is released from custody. And at that point, a 6A is sent.
Okay, thank you, Judge Lazare. That's actually very, very helpful. That was what I was trying to get at. So in this situation, did the jail notify the judge, or how was the judge notified? Warden Harper?
I don't know whose case that is.
I could speak for us. When that decision is made by the physicians, we notify whatever avenue that gets to the appropriate judge. And once, in this instance, a judicial order, was given, we came off security, they went back to the jail. And I think they went back to the jail. I don't, to be honest, don't know. They didn't go back? Warden?
Did who come back?
Yeah, the patient.
No, no.
He died.
Yeah, there was an ROR, we were released, and the subject died. So
otherwise, he died not in the custody of the jail. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That is correct. Even though we provide security and, prevalence of the inmate, they die, it's in the custody of the jail. But in this case, I believe an ROR was issued just so he wasn't in custody when he died, for the sake of the family, visitation, and so forth. So I think that was the decision that was made.
So does the jail track, and I guess Warden Harper, this is going back to you, does the jail track what happens to someone once they leave the jail and go to the hospital? Is there any sort of follow-up on the jail's part to say, hey, this person left our custody, went to the hospital, if they get the release?
Well, Ms. Hallam, there'd be a problem with HIPAA, the jail's not entitled to that information unless the patient would sign a release allowing the jail to get that information. So, I mean, I don't know how that happens.
I'm sorry, what I was asking is, like, for example, the jail does get the information that they knew this person went to the jail. They knew then that they were released from the custody of the jail while they were in the hospital. I'm not talking about what happens after they were released from custody. I'm talking about, does the jail keep track of the people who leave the jail, go to the hospital, and then are released from custody from the hospital?
Well, the jail has to know that they're released from custody because a 6A is sent to the jail. So obviously that the jail would know that that person was released from custody. What happens after they're released from custody? I don't know how the jail would be legally entitled to that information.
I'm asking. I'm not asking about after they're released from custody. I'm trying to figure out if the jail is tracking people who are, 6A released after they go to the hospital. Not what happens after the release.
They would get a bunch of 6As. I mean, there's, you know how many 6As are sent out of the jail on a daily basis?
Or sent to the hospital from the jail. If it's that many, then it's too many to keep track.
It doesn't say on the 6A that somebody is being released from the jail because they're in the hospital. The only thing that's sent down is a 6A that says you are to release this person from your custody, and it doesn't say why. It simply says release this person.
I understand that. What I'm asking is, let's say, John Smith, right? I'm the jail. Okay. John Smith's in the jail. I know, because I'm the jail and John Smith was in the jail. I know John Smith just went to the hospital, right? So then when I then get a 6A about John Smith, wouldn't you think that I'd be like, okay, I had somebody that went to the jail and then they were released from the jail. They never came back. Maybe a better way of asking the question is, does the jail keep track of people who go to the hospital and never return to the jail?
I think what Judge Lazare is trying to say is that once a 6A court order directs the jail to release the person from the custody of the jail, the sheriff's office is notified, they remove their security detail, and it's no longer, there's no mechanism in place to track that or follow up regarding a person who's been released.
So this could have happened 100 times before. People who go to the hospital from the jail and they're released from custody and die in the hospital. That's what I'm trying to figure out. How many times?
The only thing, people get sick.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sheriff.
I'm sorry, Judge. People get sick, and it's a medical issue. It's not a judicial issue. It's not a legal, justice issue. People get sick. And in this case, I think collectively we tried to do the right thing. We did the ROR, did the 6A or whatever. I can't speak for the judges, but to allow him to be visited by his family before he died.
But I think in addition, the jail has no concern regarding that person once he's released from the custody, unless and until, if I may, someone signs a arrest warrant and someone brings him back to the jail. He's no longer the jail's issue, given the fact that he's been released from custody.
Right, but it's our issue as a jail oversight board that someone left the jail and never came back because they died. That is 100% a concern.
Well, Bethany, but that happens.
I understand,
but from a medical perspective, that happens.
I understand that it happens because 12 people have died in the past, not even 2 years from that jail. I very much understand that happens. I'm asking how we as a board, what I'm trying to get to is, if the jail is not tracking it, how are we as the board supposed to do our job and make sure that we're taking every measure possible to prevent deaths of the jail? That's all I'm trying to do. How are we going to do that?
No evidence relating to custody or any judicial order or any criminal justice system order that they die, and it's related strictly to a medical condition, what exactly do we have to explain?
We don't know yet what he died of, right? We don't yet know that it was a medical condition. We don't yet know why he died. All I want to know is, how can we track when someone goes to the hospital from the jail and never comes back? Go ahead, Justin.
Hey, Elliot, we have a suicide prevention subcommittee. Can I suggest that we expand it and have it be a preventable death subcommittee so that we can have some people that ask questions about tracking? And some of this information, Bethany, quite frankly, can't be tracked unless somebody signs a release to allow it to be. But, maybe we can have a small subcommittee of people talk about the issue of preventable deaths in the jail, and talk about what can be tracked and can't be tracked, and that perhaps that small subcommittee, and they can also follow the suicide prevention items just as one subcommittee, you know, so that we can address some of those issues.
I love
Because
that.
it's going to require, I think, a small group of people talking and bouncing ideas, and then finding out what we can or cannot do.
I love that
With
idea.
all-
Sarah. Thank you for that.
Yeah, with all due respect, Your Honor, I think we have to be careful with saying preventable. We're assuming facts that aren't necessarily evidence, so we know once all the investigations are complete, maybe there's a review that could be done. But
Mr.
until-
Polarski, that was an exceptionally legal objection that you made there, assuming facts, not evidence.
How about a
But,
death prevention?
we can call it, yeah, debt, you know,
Death
I don't know, you
prevention.
can call it whatever you want to call it, but the idea is that we would be able to discuss what we can get, what we can't get, and if we find that there's a problem, that we can sort of talk about it. That's.
I agree. And just to follow up with that, when I was making my calls to each board member, that was the consensus, that we would kind of couple that with the suicide prevention subcommittee. And that was something that we would definitely take a closer look at going forward. And it was the consensus of the group that would be done once the liaison comes on, as a way of educating all the board members as well as the liaison. So that was definitely a consensus and something that everyone was in agreement with. I mean, that's something we can do going forward.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you all so much.
Yes, Ms. Royston, did you have something you'd like to add? Okay. Anything else from anyone? All right.
Well, I guess just the only thing that I didn't say about the last issue is, so is the answer no, there is no internal review of a death that happens outside of the jail? Is that, so like there would be no review of this death is what I'm asking.
There would be no way for them to know unless there was some information was disseminated about, because of HIPAA. But again, I think
It doesn't follow you after death.
But it's not a great example. But it would be no different if someone were released from the jail and released and went home and, God forbid, overdosed and died. There'd be no way to follow that up either. There'd be no way to know that either. The jail's stake in this is that they either house people who have been ordered or confined, and they release people who have been court ordered to be released. The things that you're discussing are not necessarily their focus, given the fact that they are there for the custody and maintenance of the people in the facility.
Okay, thank you, Judge Halsey. I appreciate that answer.
All right. Anything else from anyone? We're going to
adjourn.
All right, Sheriff Krause, we're all ears.
Shoot,
Motion
Kevin,
to
I didn't mean to
adjourn.
take that from you.
So
I'm so
Bethany,
sorry.
you can't do that. That's Kevin's.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
so
me.
sorry.
That's the only thing I bring to this.
We're all ears.
That's not true.
That's what I was told. Don't say a word at these meetings except motion to adjourn. So duly delivered.
And I guess we don't need a second. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks everyone for their commitment. Thank you. Stay safe, stay warm.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Wow.